Okay, so really quick, I want to tell you a little bit about the expectations for Google Translate for this class. So basically, just a reminder, the purpose of doing writing or speaking or presentation activities in Spanish class is to show off and also to practice what you know and what you have learned in the class. Okay. So sometimes you might need to look up a word because we haven't learned it yet, and that's okay. So something like parachute or something random that you want to talk about, that's okay to look up. If you have to look up a word, please look it up using either wordreference.com or SpanishDict.com. Those are two really great online dictionaries. And the reason they're so great is that they don't just give you a single word like Google Translate does, they give you all of the context and they teach you how to use it in a sentence. So that way you're not going to say something silly like one of my students once said, Yo lata bailar. I can dance, but not can like to be able to, can like a metal container. So basically, they said, I metal container dance. If they had used something like word reference, they would have seen, okay, no, that's not the right can. I want to say to be able to. So I want to say, yo puedo bailar. Okay, and so it gives really nice examples of how you can use those words in a sentence, and it's a lot better for learning than just simply plugging something into Google Translate. Okay, also, if you look up a word, either on Word Reference or Spanish Dict, I'm going to ask that you cite the word. So I'm going to include a box in all of your writing assignments that says words I looked up. And I just want you to copy and paste any words you looked up into that box. It's a good idea for me to know what words you looked up so that I don't think that you're using Google Translate. And it's also good for me to, good for you to know which words were so important that you had to look up, and maybe you could practice those words and try to learn those words if they are important for you to know. Now, if you need help with actually grammar and putting sentences together, there are a lot of things that you could consult. First of all, you could consult your notes. We're always going to be having guided notes and things like that in the class explaining grammar concepts. You might want to look at some of Profe's examples. So I'm always going to put, or a lot of times I put examples at the beginning of writing activities so you can really see how the sentences are structured, or I might give you sentence stems as well. Past activities from the class, the activities really build on one another. So you can look at examples from other activities we've done and write sentences that looks very similar. You can also sometimes, if the question is in Spanish, you can steal some of the words or some of the verb conjugations from the question itself. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but that's a great skill to develop when learning a language. Prior knowledge, anything you've learned in Spanish class before, try to draw on that before you, or instead of using a translator. And then if you're really struggling with putting sentences together, please come to AM support or office hours. I'm here to help. I'm happy to help, and that way you'll be able to learn it and not have to rely on any sort of translator or anything. If you submit work that is not your own, it is called plagiarism. And so ETHS has the pilot, the student handbook, and they have a lot to say about plagiarism. Basically, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but you can find this online if you just Google ETHS pilot. Anytime that you're using someone else's work without citing your work, that's plagiarism. Okay. Also, copying from another student is plagiarism. Just so you know, that's also not allowed in this class. And then basically the consequences, if you look up here at the top, if you copy a whole major project or something like that, you could even get an F for the semester. What I see the most often in my Spanish classes is here, people copying parts of an assignment or maybe all of a small assignment from Google Translate. And so if that happens, you will get a 0 on that particular assignment. If it's a repeat thing, we may have to have a meeting with your parents, and there will be a lowering of your grade, okay? So just some final things. As a Spanish teacher, it is so obvious when students use Google Translate. I know what you know. I know what we've learned. If you're a native speaker and you incorporate some phrases that your family or friends use, that's okay too. I can tell when someone's doing that, and I can tell when someone's stealing from Google Translate. So focus on the Spanish you do know. If you're trying to say something really complicated and you don't know how to say it in Spanish, try to think of a different way to say it. You might have to write some sentences that are a little bit simpler. You may be making more mistakes, but remember, we normalize mistakes in this class. Mistakes are the best way to learn a language. So I would much rather see a student submit a writing activity that has a bit more mistakes, but they took risks and they tried out things on their own, versus a perfect paper that is clearly copied from Google Translate. So now you know a bit about my expectations, and hopefully we won't have any issues with Google Translate in this class. And happy writing.